Hello and welcome to this very first introductory video about the exciting new channel where I will give a brief yet comprehensive introduction to a powerful software application that we will be thoroughly looking at and which will undoubtedly be the primary focus of our next few upcoming videos. Let's begin by exploring Animate. This is indeed a very popular and widely recognized animation software application, and I would confidently state that it is considerably easier to learn and utilize compared to many other professional tools, or at the very least, those particular ones that are extensively used and commonly employed in the demanding field of animation production today. There are some specific technical aspects and features that make it much easier to use, especially when compared to other complex software like Toon Boom. Take Harmony for a prime example, where simply working with the software itself is often a bit more complicated and challenging because it inherently possesses a greater number of advanced tools and a wider array of intricate functions. So after you successfully open the software application, this is typically the very first screen you will see, and you then need to meticulously create a new file or project where you can immediately begin drawing your initial designs and later animate them with precision. We click on Create New. This window appears, and here we have several options depending on what our animation is intended for. We can choose where our animation is targeted. There are different types of files, such as we will start with, of course, character animation, since that's what I want us to look at in this case. And later on, we'll develop further through the 12 principles and moving forward with more complex exercises. In character animation, we have several options. For video files, we will typically work in Full HD, 1920 by 1080, with a frame rate of 25 frames per second. That means 25 frames per second. Now, as I create it, I'll explain this file to you like this. When it loads, this window appears, and now we're inside the program. We've created a file where we can start working. 25 frames per second is the standard in television animation. What exactly does that truly mean? It profoundly means that in just one single second of video playback, we actually have 25 individual and distinct frames of visual information being displayed. And you can see here it's highlighted in the... This is called the timeline. This window here, where we have layers, we can create them. Different layers on which we can draw and structure our single drawing, and later the animation, using each separate layer for different things. We will explain these things in the next videos so that they become clearer to you. For now, I will proceed to delete the additional layers I have created and then revert back to the frame rate of precisely 25. This specifically means we will have 25 frames per second, and here we can clearly see how it's marked. Every 25 frames, we consistently have 1 second, then 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and so on, continuing in this manner. We can see how many seconds our animation is. Now I will proceed to delete the unnecessary extra frames in order to clearly show you, and the others as well, the various menus and essential tools in the software. This way, things will be much easier, and also in the following videos, what I'm showing and explaining is for you to learn how to use it. The keys on the keyboard, so you can access the tools more quickly and perform some functions so that you don't have to search for the tool you need here or launch it every time. The function is also the options of a given tool via drop-down menus or the menu on the side, and use the keyboard so that things can happen to you faster. Because efficiency is one of the key things in animation. That's right. Like, for example, here's the creation of a brand new frame, or more specifically a new active square where we can actually draw, since I currently only have one active square available where I can draw. However, I can't drag it around. It clearly marks the current position ahead and allows me to effortlessly add brand new drawings on the subsequent frames. This is indeed one of the primary and most effective ways to create a completely new animation or sequence. A new active square by right-clicking and selecting. Insert a blank frame, which then gives us a brand new, completely empty square that is now active and ready for me to draw within it. So after that initial step, if I want to create a new one but wish to duplicate the exact same drawing, I can accomplish this in one of two convenient ways. Either by holding down the Alt key, then clicking and dragging, or by simply pressing this specific button. This button here. So the next one. The next button is also very useful, the so-called onion skin. This is when I'm already making an animation and I want to create an in-between drawing. I'll delete these. If I want to make an in-between frame, for this ball here, which should move from here to here, and I want to create one in between these two, when I press the onion skin, I can already see the previous and the next frame, and that helps me draw the in-between drawing. Like this. You see there are two little arms. One is blue, the blue one is for the previous drawing. The green one means that's the next drawing. These two arms, I'll carefully extend the empty space here a little bit. These two distinct arms, by the way, are inherently subject to a variety of influences and conditions, which is quite interesting to consider. By moving them, I can determine exactly how many squares I want to see. Backwards or forwards, if, for example, I have more here. Drawings. This way, I can decide how many squares and accordingly how many drawings I want to see. Forward or backwards, so here we have another button which this gives me the option, just for a moment please, which then gives me the comprehensive option to manipulate several drawings at once. When it is not enabled, I only see the drawing of the square I'm in. In this case, I'm on the 5th square. I only see that drawing on the 5th square, on the 4th, 3rd, and so on. However, if I want to, and accordingly, I can only manipulate the drawing of the square I see. When I press this button, I can manipulate all the drawings I've chosen to see at the same time. Again, as I move the left or right shoulder so that they can expand the range of that scene. Like this, I'll skip this button. We'll talk about it in one of the next videos. This is the primary button that you will use to can play the movement we've created and the frames we've drawn to loop endlessly when we press. The play button, if this button is pressed and inactive, then we will only see the movement just once. The next three buttons are for going back, forward or backward on the timeline. When we press once, we go back by one. We go one frame back or one frame forward, and if we press and hold, we return to the beginning. If we press the left button and if we press the right button, we go all the way to the end of the movement or up to where we have active drawings in the layered timeline. And accordingly, this, I think everyone is familiar with this button when it's pressed. We start to see the animation in real time. Here we also have something that is probably familiar to you from other software. This is to zoom in or out. The view of the frames and accordingly of the timeline if we have too many drawings that we want to see all at once, or we can condense the view of the frames and see them smaller, or accordingly make them much larger. With this, we reset the view so that it returns to its default position. In general, I prefer to work a little above the standard default position, above the usual standard default position, that is, because that's just way too small for me, but of course that's up to your own preferences. We've spent too much time on the timeline here. We'll talk about these tools later on, meaning these buttons, since therefore they're a bit more advanced. So once we get familiar with the basics of the software and dive a little deeper, we'll discuss these buttons on the left as well, as you've probably noticed, and they may have caught your attention. Just like in all other software, not only for animation, but also for drawing or design, the toolbar is present. We have the standard black arrow, we have the transform tool, which allows us to transform drawings, and we have the lasso tool, which lets us select a particular drawing or part of a drawing. We have several types of brushes. This is the standard brush. For drawing, an eraser, of course. The basics. A tool for creating basic geometric shapes. A line tool for creating lines, and the pen tool. Text, so we can type. A paint bucket to fill with color, and an eyedropper to pick up a color. That's one. It's based on the principle of working in Photoshop and other software, so you can use it to create points, which you can later, with a double click, and in this way you can manipulate the drawing. So I'll go back to remove it. One more time like this to remove it. These manipulation points, the little hand we use to move and the end of it, and of course the loop. So here we have 3 dots, and when we click them, a much larger menu with tools opens up, which, as you can see, can't fit in the toolbar, and that's why they are hidden. So here we have 2 also quite standard buttons. One button, the one with the solid color, that's the color that we select for the brush or for filling with the paint bucket. The other color, which is just outlined, that's the outline color, the contour, when we create some of the basic shapes. Here you see I have selected blue for the outline, red for the fill, and accordingly when I create a rectangle, it has a blue outline and red inside, red fill. Now I can use this button to turn off the outline color, and in this way when I create a rectangle, it won't have an outline, it'll just be color, but I can turn off the fill and do the opposite. When I create the rectangle or any of the basic shapes, I only have an outline without any color inside. So let's actually delete these items now. And I'll show you something else fundamental about 2 of the standard tools. The brush, which as we said, draws with the color, the solid one, and the pencil, which draws with the outline color. What's the difference? If you don't know, well, it's that when we want to manipulate something with the black arrow, when we want to manipulate the line, and we've drawn with the brush, only the 2 ends can be manipulated. of the drawing, whereas with the pencil and the black arrow tool, we can carefully and precisely manipulate, adjust, and control the entire line accurately and effectively as a whole. So it really matters which tool you use to choose for drawing. Both are used and both have their own advantages and disadvantages. Qualities. So it really depends on what we want to draw. And later, we need to think about whether we'll want to manipulate the line in some way and how. So let's scroll down here to the very last ones. These are the buttons from the main toolbar. This is an object drawing tool, which, if it is pressed and actively selected when we draw with the brush, some kind of shape, then every single individual stroke, not with the brush, but rather it doesn't just simply draw, but also truly turns the entire drawing into a tangible object, which profoundly means that in order to effectively manipulate it in some particular way, to either add or perhaps delete from what we've carefully drawn, we absolutely need to double-click and then enter this specific object before we can proceed to delete anything at all. Whereas if it's not active, right, we can I turned on the camera. Sorry, I will certainly turn it off, because at this particular moment, it is definitely not the appropriate time to be talking to the camera. If we are indeed drawing with an inactive object, then, when we carefully select the drawing, we can clearly see it displayed. That it's selected, so we can erase and do other manipulations with what we've drawn with the brush. So here are a few more important details. This particular button is primarily designed for situations when you are actively drawing something with a specific color, and especially when different colored elements overlap, or when you are meticulously coloring in various sections. Therefore, for the present moment, we absolutely won't be touching or adjusting them at all. These buttons with these options, this is the button on your tablet to use the tablet's pressure sensitivity if it's turned off. You can't draw with thin and thick lines, meaning you can't use the tablet's pressure sensitivity if it's off. If it's on, you can. When you don't press as hard, it draws thinner. When you press harder, it draws thicker. This is to use the tilt of the pen, in other words. The more tilted the pen is, the thinner the line it draws, the more the angle determines it. It gets thicker. Personally, I don't use this because I don't want the thickness of my line to depend on how my pen is tilted, since for different shapes, with the pen the angle changes, and I don't want that to affect the thickness of my line. I want to control the thickness of the line from... That's truly all I currently have to say for now about the important topic of pen pressure on the digital tablet, primarily because this video is genuinely starting to get quite long, and we still have many more essential things to cover regarding the overall interface, various buttons, numerous menus, and all the different tools. After all, it absolutely has to be genuinely interesting for people to watch the video and truly learn something valuable, not to become endlessly boring and excessively long. So, with that in mind, I will definitely make a comprehensive part 2 in which we will thoroughly go over all the remaining aspects and details. From the menus and buttons, as I mentioned. And I'll try in the future to keep the videos within 20 to 25 minutes. If I see that I can't fit everything in to cover the necessary information and make the tutorials, I'll split them into 2, hopefully not more parts. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Also, if you're someone who would be interested in watching the other videos in the future and wants to learn more about animation and different software, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the new videos. Comments of any kind are welcome, and I'll try to reply to everyone. Bye for now, and I'll see you in the next video.